Now
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
7:06 now on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here on a super busy Tuesday morning. Thanks again to Andrew Langer for filling in yesterday and Friday for me. It was my annual pilgrimage to Portland to visit my father because he does not travel anymore. Man of his age, Julie Gunlock. And I want to give a hat tip to all the liberal Democrat politicians who have taken a beautiful city like Portland and ruined it. You look at the most beautiful cities in this country, especially on the West Coast. Los Angeles was never really pretty. But San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, pigsties now.
Gone.
Pigsties.
Yep.
That said, it was good to see my dad coming up later in the program at 7:35. A conversation with Dr. Jennifer London, brand new book, Profiles in Character. You're going to hear about that. That's Julie Gunlock. I'm Larry O'Connor, and this is Adam Kredo of the Washington Free Beacon. Adam, thank you for joining us. Good to talk to you, my friend.
Good to talk to you. Always happy to.
Listen to this exchange from Scott Pelley's interview with Joe Biden Sunday.
Is Iran behind the Gaza war?
I don't want to get into classified information, but to be very blunt with you, there is no clear evidence of that.
At this point, no evidence that Iran is behind any of this.
Correct. Now, Iran constantly supports Hamas and Hezbollah. I don't mean that. But in terms of did they have foreknowledge? Did they help plan the attack? There's no evidence.
All right. So, Adam Kredo, first of all, the just obscene insult to our intelligence that Joe Biden is saying, make no mistake, Iran supports Hamas and Hezbollah, has done so for decades, will continue to do so. But we're not sure they had anything to do with this, the single most significant attack Hamas has ever executed. That just defies all logic and reason. But didn't we just see a report, an extensive report from the Wall Street Journal days after the attack saying, oh, yeah, Iran has their fingerprints all over this?
Exactly. It's a completely disjointed statement. I mean, just the internal logic of it doesn't hold up. You can't get into classified information, but yet Iran supports Hamas. I mean, I said it earlier, this is a laughable statement. There's nothing classified about this. The Iranian government funds, arms, and directs Hamas and Hezbollah on Israel's northern border. Both of these groups are Iranian-backed. Both of these groups are armed by them and waging an attack on Israel and slaughtering Jews at Iran's behest. I don't think anything could be clearer. In fact, the Iranian government, its leadership, has praised Hamas, hosted them yesterday, hosted them before this attack last week was launched. So I think it's abundantly clear from years and years of mounting evidence, from years and years of money moving to these groups from Tehran, that Iran, of course, had a primary role in this.
Yeah, no doubt. And Adam, I asked this because there's an awful lot of questions in Washington about who's really in charge and sort of some whispers about Obama sort of pulling some strings at the White House. He still has residence here in Washington, D.C. But news, you actually tweeted about this. There's an Obama podcast producer who denied Hamas killed people in Israel. This woman named Misha Youssef, she then deleted what she had tweeted. Tell me your thoughts on that, because I think that says a lot about sort of where Obama might stand and where people associated with Obama might stand.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's a very good example of how those on the left, how those who are pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel activists kind of view the conflict. This woman, a producer on the Obama Family podcast, both Barack Obama and Michelle Obama's separate podcast, was on Instagram in the days after this attack happened saying there's no evidence that Hamas killed babies, that Hamas raped women, that Hamas committed all of these atrocities that we know that they did because the photographic evidence, the video evidence is out there. The Israeli government has published it. And in fact, even saying not only are these unverified claims, but repeating them actually foments Islamophobia, right? This is the kind of logic and rhetoric that these people have. And even going further to say, if you claim that Hamas uses human shields, which it does, by the way, ordering innocent Gazans to stay in the city and be bombed by Israel is the exact definition of using human shields. But this woman claimed that they do not use human shields. And again, making these claims actually puts you on the side of the oppressor, the Israelis. So I think this is a very good microcosm of what the left is doing by trying to spin Hamas's atrocities and say that it's not okay to talk about them. And it's very much part of the Obama administration's kind of policies in the region and the way they viewed Israel.
Adam Kredo from Washington Free Beacon is our guest. And if there was any justice, every single cable and broadcast network would have Adam on as an expert to talk about this government and its position with Iran, because he's been all over it for years. He's covered the Iran issue better than any reporter in this town. Adam, I want you to listen to this. This is 2009 Robert Malley talking about Hamas.
There's so much misinformation about them. I mean, I speak to them, and my colleagues speak to them. Now, we may disagree with them, but they have their own rationality. That's the one thing to understand. These are not, none of them are crazies.
None of them are crazies. These are the people who rape people next to the corpses of their husbands and boyfriends and decapitate children. But listen, this goes well beyond a producer of a podcast or some, lunatic member of Congress who's a Democrat or some radical professor in the Ivy League. Robert Malley, tell us who Robert Malley is, please, Adam, with regard to the Biden administration.
Sure, of course, and I'm very familiar with that clip. I've listened to it multiple times over the years. So Robert Malley is the U.S.-Iran envoy. He is the man who was put in charge by the Biden administration at the State Department under Secretary Blinken to negotiate with Iran to get us back into a revamped version of that 2015 nuclear deal Obama inked, and of course also to conduct other sort of side diplomacy with Iran, like freeing hostages that we saw last month. However, Robert Malley has not been in his job for months and months because he was suspended. His security clearance was yanked, and he's being investigated by the FBI for allegedly mishandling classified information, which of course raises questions about who might have gotten that classified information, particularly the Iranians.
Yeah.
Adding a bit of mystery to this, and I think this is important here, is a report from Semaphore about a week and a half ago that shows very close associates of Malley were actually linked to an Iranian government-run propaganda influence network. These are people that were pushing Tehran's positions with Western leaders in the media and other places, and these people were very close to Rob Malley.
Yep.
In fact, one of them worked with him at the State Department and is now at the Pentagon, where she has a classified security clearance.
Yeah, and she was part of this thing called the Iran Experts Initiative. We've talked about it a few times. It was set up by the Iran Foreign Ministry in 2014, and somehow they got within Robert Malley's inner circle and now work for our government, thanks to Joe Biden. I mean, Robert Malley is to Iran and terrorists in the Middle East what Alger Hiss was to the Soviets.
Yeah, look, I mean, Malley's positions have always been clear. The Hamas statements are not surprising. He was on the Obama campaign all the way back in 2008, fired for holding unauthorized talks with terror groups, including Hamas. This is who he is. These are his positions. They have not changed. They have not moderated in any way. And the attitude is very much the same towards the Iranian government and negotiating with them, which is how we get into a deal that frees up $6 billion for the Iranian regime so it can continue its funding of terror proxies.
And by the way, the House Oversight Committee announced yesterday that they are subpoenaing Robert Malley, who is, again, under investigation for mishandling classified documents and has had his security clearance lifted. You know what it takes to get your security clearance lifted in this town. I mean, obviously this has got to be serious. As well as Ariane Tabatabai, who is currently working at the Pentagon, thanks to Mr. Malley, and she is linked with that Tehran Foreign Ministry influence operation. Unbelievable tangled web, but we are glad we have Adam Kredo at Washington Free Beacon to untangle it a bit for us. Adam, always good work. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys greatly.
It's 7:16. Let's get straight to...
Later this morning on the Chris Plante Show, the Democrat Party, the party of looting, defunding the police, shooting people, and hating the Jews. 9 a.m. on WMAL.
I know that you had some time yesterday with Joe DeGeneva reflecting on the life of Suzanne Somers, and I just wanted to take a few moments to echo what Joe had said, because
we kind of a cool story too.
We a little bit, not nearly as cool as Joe's interactions, but we lost a bit of a queen yesterday with Suzanne Somers, who was a real groundbreaking individual, if you think about it, and a trailblazer.
Yep.
And yes, she was a patriotic conservative Republican. She, like I, was influenced by the Reagan years, as Californians were.
Yeah.
And so this whole world in Palm Springs, California is hard. I know that people, roll their eyes about anything having to do with California, but you have to understand there are different
pockets.
There are pockets. And believe it or not, in Palm Springs, former home of Gerald Ford, former home of Congressman Sonny Bono, there is a huge conservative Republican community in Palm Springs and in the desert environs.
Yeah.
Just think, golf and good times. That's what we stand for.
Yeah.
And I was invited. Meredith and I spent a weekend in Palm Springs a couple of years ago, and I got a last-minute phone call from Rick Grinnell, former ambassador to Germany. This was, in fact, when he was still awaiting confirmation, Rick Grinnell. And Rick's been a friend for years. And he says, I heard you're in Palm Springs. I said, yes. He goes, we're having a birthday party at Suzanne Somers' house tonight, and Joe DeGeneva is cooking an Italian dinner. You've got to come over.
And Larry's 14-year-old self was like, Chrissy! Dinner with Chrissy!
Oh, my God, I get to see Chrissy Snow. And sadly, we had commitments already that we couldn't.
Awful.
So one of my greatest regrets of the last several years is that I could have had Rick Grinnell's birthday at Suzanne Somers' house with a dinner cooked by Joe DeGeneva.
I mean, and you can just see him with a razor blade and the garlic in the kitchen, right?
And the apron.
You got a saute.
With marinara sauce wiped on the apron.
Yes, exactly.
I know. Oh, that would have been amazing. But I did get to, I met her a couple of times, but Meredith and I spent an evening with her at when Rick Grinnell was finally approved by the Senate, confirmed as the ambassador to Germany. He had a going away party here in D.C., and she was so plugged in on current events, so incredibly passionate about this country.
And Joe said, I thought it was interesting, she's really concerned currently, obviously about world affairs, but also parents. She was really concerned about the parent rights movement and what's happened to parents in this country. So she was very plugged in to sort of the latest issues, and a real loss. And I will also say, happy warrior, just someone who's always so cheerful and lighting up the room. And so,
she made more money on that Thigh Master thing than she did on Three's Company.
I mean, I'm telling you right now, men of the world, say goodbye to everyone's nice thighs. Like, we can't. She really did a lot for women.
She was great. She really did, and she fought cancer so valiantly for so long,
for so many years.
But you're right, as a happy warrior, always with a big smile on her face, and she's just a beautiful person inside and out, and she will be missed. She will be missed, and. The beauty, the great thing about Hollywood, and when you're somebody like Suzanne Somers, is that there are these lasting images of you at your very, very most beautiful and best. And listen, she was beautiful right up until the end. But the fact that at any given moment you can turn on American Graffiti, and she is that young, hot, smiling blonde in the Thunderbird, the 56 Thunderbird. And I'm not sure which is more beautiful, her or the car, but the fact that they were both a package was really something, and she will be missed. It's 7:21.
Making sense of your world.
And you got good analysis on stuff.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
And I wanted to say how much I appreciate that.
Making sense of the news.
Also, a little bit more for those of you who may have missed yesterday's program. Here's Joe DeGeneva reflecting yesterday, because there's one critical part of Suzanne Somers' legacy that needs to be appreciated.
No one knew the story of how she had been fired because she wanted equal pay. But that was a changing moment in her life. I mean, that changed everything. She became an independent figure at that point. And John Ritter was a bitter man, by the way. I mean, he just hated her. He hated her intensely because she went out and made her own life after he rejected her, and he couldn't stand it. He just hated her until the day he died.
Yeah, he was a big jerk to her, and people will forget that, you know, he was paid like 10 times more than she was on that Three's Company show.
Yeah.
And then you look at, I mean, it was a hugely successful show, making tons of money for the network. So when her contract was up, it's not like she walked out in the middle of the deal. She waited for her contract.
You made a good point. When you tuned in to Three's Company, you weren't tuning in to see John Ritter.
No. I mean, listen, he was funny and he was talented, but look at how they promoted that show.
Right.
It was about her.
Right.
It was about her costumes.
They were happy to take the revenue.
That's right.
That she brought in.
You just sit there and be pretty and bounce around in flimsy outfits.
Yeah, you mentioned she's a trailblazer, but so many people don't know why is she demanded equal pay because she was bringing in a lot of revenue into that show. But you never hear about that.
No, you don't.
She was a conservative and a Trump supporter, and for that.
And they slimed her. The liberals, John Ritter, and the people at ABC, they slimed her. They
and the brown-haired lady, whatever her name
Joyce DeWitt.
Yes,
I remember it well. It was very an impressionable show on my childhood, to tell you the truth. Doctor, coming up, we're going to have a conversation with Dr. Jennifer London, her new book, Profiles in Character. Keep it here.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:36 now on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for joining us. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Julie, one of the things I love about being Catholic in particular is that we put an emphasis on the communion of saints, right? There are these great, incredible Christians who came before us and died, and they set an example for us.
Yes.
Right? There's something like life goals. I want to achieve this kind of life, right? You can say the same about those great Americans who came before us, that you can hold up, you know, in a secular way as kind of American saints. It's like these were incredibly important Americans who made a difference, who framed this nation, kept the torch burning, and I wish I could live up to their example, right?
Yeah.
And that brings us to this new book. It's called Profiles in Character, 16 Americans and the Traits That Defined Them, by our guest, Jennifer London, along with her co-author and husband. Boy, I don't know how they work together. I couldn't work with Meredith on a book. That would be crazy. J. Philip London. Jennifer London, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here to talk about the book I co-authored with my late husband, Dr. J. Philip Jack London. It's a book that features 16 well-known Americans who impacted history and a character attribute that was unique to each that helped shape and inform their vital roles in history, a trait that helped propel them through challenges and that supported their successes throughout their lives. It's about real-life heroes, as you mentioned, and role models whose example provide inspirational paths for us to follow. Hopefully people will feel very inspirational in finding the strength of their own character.
It 100% is. And listen, you've got Washington, and you've got Jefferson, and you've got Lincoln, but you also have Amelia Earhart, you have Harriet Tubman, you have Martin Luther King, you have Robert E. Lee. You've got various aspects of the American tapestry represented here. How important was it for you to sort of speak about all aspects of our American history, even some people who now, as people are trying to rewrite history and call people like Robert E. Lee too controversial to even be talked about, let alone studied and admired?
Well, we didn't really focus on the individuals for the paths they chose so much. What our focus was on their character. We looked at people who really stood out in history, and then we looked closely at their character. Harriet Tubman, for instance, was audacious in her successful efforts to transport slaves to freedom. But while Robert E. Lee has been excoriated in recent years for his decision to lead the Confederate Army, one thing that was never in doubt during his life was his good character and virtue. It was his loyalty to Virginia and his refusal to fight against his own people that drove him to make the most consequential decision of his life. He did not support slavery, he opposed succession, and he accepted defeat with dignity. And he was admired by a lot of our American presidents and generations of Americans. Over 100,000 people came to the dedication of the statue in Richmond 20 years after he died. So we looked at the individuals that we felt stood out in history, and we feel the ones in the books really did, in our book really did. And then we started looking at the character attribute that we felt really demonstrated their successes and helped them through their challenges.
Dr. London, this is Julie. You know, I cover a lot of the books that are in school libraries nowadays, and this is the kind of book that we should see in school libraries. Tell us a little bit about how you feel about the current culture, what kids are learning in schools, any concerns you have about that. I'm sure you do, about how kids are being taught history in a way that doesn't teach them to appreciate their country. And I think that relates a lot to this book, which gives kids, you know, examples of wonderful Americans who they should really, you know, mold their own lives after.
Yes, we actually, interestingly, Newt Gingrich wrote the foreword to our book, Profiles in Character, and he does say in the foreword that students of American history, political science, and government would be enriched and enlightened by reading the book. We felt it was important for our next generation of leaders to look to role models. And one thing that Jack was concerned about were the failings of companies and people in our culture. And so we felt that they needed real heroes. I mean, our heroes used to be people in government, industry, education, and public service, but now they're being replaced by social media influencers. And while they're notable, they are not heroic. And so we felt that there are people in our past that are overlooked. And that's why we felt it was important to focus on those individuals. So I would say to people to parents and educators, we have those role models. We have the people that can give us inspiration, and they're in our history. We have become very polarized. In fact, a recent survey showed that America is one of the top 3 most polarized countries in the world today. Yeah. And this polarization has spilled over into our history books. There have been revisions about the lives and contributions of many historic figures, primarily in a negative direction. But I believe we should not diminish their importance while we acknowledge their flaws.
Well, and the thing that keeps a nation from being polarized is embracing our collective past and holding up these icons who we can all revere and respect. And that's what your book does, Profiles in Character. And I would say normally to homeschool parents, this is a great book to add to your curriculum. But honestly, every parent, because you don't have to be a homeschool parent to want to get good books for your kids and help augment the curriculum.
This would make also a very nice teacher gift around Christmas.
Yeah.
Give to your teacher.
Dr. London, we've reached the point where I would normally say, I wish I had more time to talk to you and to talk to you about your book. But here's the good news. Dr. Jennifer London, and I will be doing an event next week, next Thursday, October 26th. We're going to sit down for a couple of hours and talk about this book at the Cosmos Club, and it's open to the public, right? I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, I am as well. It's such a deep subject. Character, of course, and our history is vast and diverse. So I look forward to it. I think it'll be very informative. And
if you want to know more about this book, if you want to hang out with me and enjoy a really nice evening in D.C., it's going to be at the historic Cosmos Club on Massachusetts Avenue. It's next Thursday, the 26th of October. I think we'll put a link out there on our social media pages so you can find it and get yourself a ticket. And Dr. London, I will see you next week. Congratulations on the new book.
Thank you so much. And by the way, all proceeds of the book go to military organizations. So keep that. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
You bet. Listen, we all have cravings now and again, and you just got to eat, right? It's got to be hard when you're a Grubhub driver or Uber Eats driver and you got like these bags of great food right there in the passenger seat. I mean, who's going to know if you just, maybe steal a bite of somebody else?
This guy needs to visit Copair. That's all I'm saying.
The New York Post has a story of a Grubhub driver who was caught on video just diving into somebody's
so
meal.
Gross.
It is. It's the worst nightmare. Ugh. California Grubhub driver redefined Dine and Dash after gobbling down food that he was supposed to deliver to a customer.
It's like the parrot, I go if I go to a drive-through and you just steal a couple fries before you pass the bag back. Who's gonna know?
Who's gonna know? Exactly. We've gotten Five Guys from Uber Eats before. We're just again. I'm embarrassed that I'm so lazy that I can't just run out and get some fast food. But, sorry, COVID brought some bad habits on, right?
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that they've been stealing my
gross.
French fries.
No, see,
they
this is
take
why
my French fries, damn it.
No, I don't use delivery
You know,
services because I'm afraid of this,
because
honestly.
of this.
Yeah, I'll use the delivery guys that are employed by the restaurant because I feel like they're, I don't know, more maybe would honor it a little bit. I don't know. It makes me feel better to not use these.
You have to, and here's a lot of these times you can't like pick your driver, right? Like you can when you're going to get a ride share. They just assign somebody to you. So it could be a guy who just signed up that morning because he wanted a free dinner.
Gross.
I don't have to pay for dinner tonight. I can't imagine being in a place where I steal somebody else's food that I'm delivering for them. But I guess there, but for the grace of God, go I. What is if you literally don't have any food deliveries ever?
Only if it's like, so we have a couple of places that we order from. If it's Domino's or if it's like, my local Chinese place. But I trust these people.
And they use their own people.
Yes, they use their own people. I don't know why I feel like, the sort of Grubhub and Uber Eats and stuff like that. I feel like there's a level of risk that I don't want to take.
There is one great thing. Like, they would never try this with a pizza because it's pretty obvious when you open the box.
Although I have seen a video where you can like cut it in a way and like stick it back together. Yes.
So it doesn't look like the Pac-Man character.
Right. No, I don't trust anybody. I also am I'm super skeeved out about my food, and I'm
most
really
of the places now put a sticker on it. They seal the bag so that if it
this
comes
place
to
clearly
you,
didn't.
No, this guy just. I wonder if he just didn't deliver it.
No, I think he did because the story, as I'm reading the story, and it said, I noticed he was untying the bag and started chowing down on the food. Outraged, he went to confront the delivery skimmer, who insisted he wasn't getting high on his own food supply.
I like this part. In light of the incidents, Grubhub has since suspended the driver. Oh, you think? Suspended?
So this is so disgusting. He was eating mouthfuls. Whatever didn't fit in his mouth was falling right back onto the plate. I'm going to go throw up. Ew.
Brother had the mean munchies, man. It happened. Grubhub said, the vast majority of our orders are completed without incident or complaint. When things don't go as planned, we work hard to make things right.
You sound so calming. Grubhub has since suspended the driver from the company. You think? Okay.
It's 7:53.